Hey guys, and we're back with another episode of Building with You Live, the show where we sit down with folks from DTC brands and build a branded chatbot with them live. I'm your host, Sean, and I'll be doing both the interviewing as well as the walking through of the bot today. Arlene, it's a pleasure to have you.
Thank you, Sean. It's so nice to be here with you. It's a real treat to see you again.
So, Arlene's the CMO of Siligrams, a brand that started as a test project of the popularity of a local cooking enthusiast group, but has since evolved into making personalized molds for ice cubes, soap, candles, and chocolates. They've been featured on Forbes, as well as NBC, and their ice cubes are a great addition if you want to spice up your drinking game. Arlene is also a serial entrepreneur and has had over 20 years of experience in the marketing space, launching her own $1 million product as well as appearing on Shark Tank. I want to dive a little bit deeper into you as a person, Arlene, before talking about Siligrams, if that's okay with you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
Fire away.
So, with your 20 years of experience, you've seen advertising go from press to digital and the
hmm
human attention span getting shorter and shorter. I'm curious what you think about the five stages of customer awareness and whether you believe that the fundamentals of what makes a customer buy still the same despite the
hmm
medium.
Got it. Yeah, absolutely. Where would you like to start?
I think we
Because
can
all
start
those things are
on
related.
definitely start on the five stages of customer awareness and then
Yeah.
we can work down from there.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, it's really interesting when you've been in sales and marketing for as long as I have, which is decades, as opposed to most people, it's been some years. For me, it's been decades, and um, you know, many years ago. Well, it's not that long ago. We didn't have the technology available to us to create awareness for the consumer, and so early on in advertising, your choices, obviously it started with print because, there was no radio, there was no television, and certainly there was no internet. And that obviously predates me. I'm not that old. But, I come out of a world where that was the origin of advertising, where you'd get something in the mail and it would be a circular of some sort and grocery stores still do it today, that in your mailbox, you'll get some kind of a circular that has all of the featured products from the grocery store and what the prices are and what kind of specials they're running and so forth. And, those will go by the wayside at some point because the grocery stores, their margins are so slim that, cutting out the print advertising is really important. And that they will shift that all over to the internet. We're probably still a decade away from that, but the generation that is still reading those things, that they're probably in their 80s now, but it's still what comes in the mail and you check it. And I'm not 80, I'm not even close, but I still check the circular because I want to see what's on sale. So I'm always price shopping like everybody, especially with food being as expensive as it is today. And so, in the beginning, we were able to reach customers by, sending things through the postal service. So in the United States, the U.S. Postal Service would deliver all of these circulars, and there was the whole direct mail method of reaching people. And in fact, direct mail has been shown to be very effective and a very effective form of advertising and profitable, because there have been studies done on the direct mail pieces that go out. They get mailed to you, and they found that those direct mail pieces actually will sit on a person's kitchen counter for almost 3 weeks before they throw it out. And so people are walking into the kitchen every single day, and that mailing piece is sitting on their kitchen counter, or it'll be in the stack of stuff that they have to go through. And so they're actually seeing that advertisement many times. And when you see something that often, it increases the likelihood that you're actually going to buy. Now, obviously, it's very hard to do attribution tracking on a direct mail piece unless you're, putting a little number that's associated with the person's address, and nobody's doing that. But you know how many people have called based on the special number that's on the piece, or you know how many sales you got, because if you direct people to a website or to a telephone number and it's a unique number or URL, you know that all of those sales or inquiries came in via that direct mail piece. And so, we were reaching people that way. And then it was infomercials. It was on nighttime regular television, and then it became a cable television thing once cable was invented. And so these infomercials were hugely successful, and quite frankly are still very successful, even though everyone thinks that nobody's watching cable television. Actually, direct marketing via infomercials is actually some of the most profitable forms of advertising, because there is so much ad space available to buy that, a few years ago, I was working with a company and we were paying like $100 per 30-second spot on cable television in certain markets because they didn't have any content to fill the space. And there are people watching cable television late at night. And so, we were like, that was all the business did, is we were buying ad time, like ad space on cable television and running these infomercials, and the phones are ringing off the hook like crazy. So that form of outreach and awareness was, once again, very, very productive and profitable. And then we get into the more traditional forms of advertising for companies where, especially if you're in the retail space, you'll go to trade shows or you'll buy spots in magazines, or there will be somebody that has a special event and you're going to be a sponsor of that. And I know in the first year of GoGo Gear, when I started that company back in 2008, I didn't know anything about the sector that I was coming into. I had just invented this product and was like, okay, now I'm going to bring it to market. And I did everything that people told me to do. I went to trade shows all over the US. I went to trade shows in Europe, where they have the biggest market and the biggest markets per country or by country for people who ride motorcycles and scooters, which gets to the whole thing on Shark Tank, where, they didn't want to put up the money. Like, we did the deal, but we ultimately didn't close the deal, because what we wanted to do is we needed the money to be able to take our product into Europe. We had already been there. We were already selling there. And we had the data to show that, like in the United States, at the time, this is, 10, 15 years ago, there were like 7 million registered motorcycle owners. And that may sound like a lot, but in a country of 300 plus million, that's not very much. That's not a big percentage. It was like 35 million registered motorcycle owners in the United States. So it's about 10% of the population have bikes that are registered to be on the road. Well, in Europe, there were like 5 small countries that put together, they had way more than 35 million registered bike owners. And then, you look at Taiwan, like the number of scooters per capita in Taiwan was ridiculous. Like every house has like 43 scooters in it. I'm exaggerating, but you get the idea. And so we knew that the bigger market for our products was Europe, because to market to a population of like 300 million people, to try and find those 35 million, that is a heavy lift in terms of marketing, and it's a lot of money. Whereas you go into the UK or Italy or France, they're very small compared to the United States. They're heavily concentrated in the big cities, and they have retail stores all over the place that are catering to people who are commuting on 2 wheels. And that was the key, is that people in Europe are commuting on 2 wheels, where in the US, people on 2 wheels, it's for recreation. And so it's a completely different marketing thing to be marketing to people who have to ride their bike every single day. We were even looking at like in Copenhagen, where they have the largest number of bicycle riders, of providing protective wear to bicycle riders because there's so many of them. And this is considered a central part of their apparel. They have to have protective wear to go out and be on their scooter to go off to work. Whereas in the US, you know, there's like 20 states in the US that don't even have a law requiring people to wear a motorcycle helmet. So the thing was, is if people are going to go out on their motorcycle and be driving at 80 miles an hour and not have a motorcycle helmet on, you think they're going to spend any money to protect any other part of their body? No. So that makes the market way smaller. And so we knew our market really, really well. And we knew that our audience was going to, the audience that we could sell to most effectively and most quickly and most profitably was in Europe. But on Shark Tank, they treated it like the way they aired, well, the way they set it up and the way the producers edited it, it made it look like we just wanted to go to Europe for a vacation, because they were trying to trivialize what it was that we knew and understand, because in reality, we knew more about our market than any one of the sharks, even the one that we did the deal with. They knew nothing about doing business in Europe, and we were already doing it. And we were very clear about, we had everything mapped out. We knew exactly what we needed. We knew how much money, we knew what we were going to do with it. And we needed the money to be able to expand into that market, which is where we were going to make a huge amount of money, because there was only one competitor that could be even comparable to what we were doing. And they were doing like 30 million euros in just France in 1 year. And they didn't have anywhere near what we had. And we're like, oh my God, you know? And yet the sharks, they were like, no, you just need to stay in your own market, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, you people don't know anything about what we do or our market or our business. This is just television. We're just the props. And it's like, okay, fine. I'll get my, free 15 minutes of national television in the US. And it, it paid off, but it would have been way better for us to just be in Europe. And so, once again, the awareness thing is we ended up in Europe at all of these trade shows where, for example, we went 2 years in a row to a big trade show in Milan, Italy, where they had like 16 convention center size buildings, all filled with motorcycle related paraphernalia. It was the bikes, it was the carriers, it was the gear, the bags for the bike, the covers, the clothing, everything. And it's where the entire industry in Europe would go to buy product every year. And they allowed the public to come in on the last couple of days. And I remember the last 2 days of the first time I went to this show, and there were 500,000 people with their faces pressed up against all of the windows trying to get into these buildings because they were so desperate to see the new bikes. Because in Italy, they're not, the bikes are like art in Italy. Moto Guzzi, you've got the Ducati, Aprilia. There are a lot of beautifully designed bikes, and they go on display at this trade show. And so we were told we needed to go to trade shows. So we did all of them in the US, and then we decided we were going to go to Europe. And we spent $20,000 just going to that one show by the time we paid to fly there and ship all of our gear and our booth stuff and everything. And it was really productive for us. And in fact, the first time we exhibited there, we had this tiny little 10 by 10 booth in this massive convention center that had semi trucks and all kinds of stuff inside. And here's this tiny little booth with these two women from the US. And we were written up all over the European press because they were so, gobsmacked. They couldn't believe that these two women, these two middle-aged women from America, had stolen the attention of everyone at this big motorcycle show with this really innovative product. And so everybody in the press room was like buzzing about our little tiny booth and the products that we had in there. And it was just like so satisfying. But none of that meant anything to the sharks because they didn't know and understand anything. So anyways, the whole point of all of that is we did everything that people told us to do. And we spent $150,000 in the first year doing all of this traditional form of marketing and to create awareness. So it was taking out ads in magazines that targeted women motorcycle riders. and then it was the industry magazines, and then it was the industry trade shows, and then it was every motorcycle club in America wants you to come to their little event and donate product and be there and show your stuff because they need vendors. And so I don't know, I must have been in 150 cities in our first year. Like, I was tracking all over America because we were just showing the product to everyone. And obviously, it's very, very expensive to do that. And you only reach so many people. But that was the only thing that was available. And so in 2008, Facebook had maybe 20 million people on it. And Twitter had just started. There was no Instagram. There was no nothing. It was just, LinkedIn didn't even exist. Like, there was Facebook and there was Twitter. And so I got on Facebook and Twitter every day, all day. And I was talking nonstop about the product. I was making so much noise. I was probably what you would consider an influencer of the day. And I was posting videos, and I was just there. I was ever present. And so I built this really huge following. Like, I would have been the TikTok star of TikTok had TikTok existed in 2008, because I was that active and I was building this huge audience. And this is before we ever even let people know that we had a product out there. And so I built an entire audience using nothing but social media. And then I got written up in the Huffington Post. And then all of a sudden these bloggers started, identifying that I was out there, and they're writing stories about the company. And the product hadn't launched yet. We were just coming to market with it. But I figured, you know what I'm going to do is I'm going to create 6 months worth of content. I was there every day for 6 months, just talking about what we were doing, but never showing anyone anything. And the day that our website went live, because what I needed to do is I needed to sort of prove, it was like a proof of concept. I needed to prove that what we were doing was going to work. And that meant I needed to let people know about it. I couldn't wait until we had all the product in the country and then try and start selling. I had to have an audience of buyers before we had the first garment come into the country. And so on the day that the website went live, like, no one believed what I was talking about. No one believed, like, when I was describing what we were doing, they didn't believe me. And so now it became this big game of, Arlene's full of shit, and what she's talking about is just like all BS. It's not going to be all that great. And I was on a plane when the website went live. And by the time I landed, my voicemail was full. Social media had exploded, and we had an avalanche of sales, because this was the first time people had seen anything like what we had done. And the rest is history. The company just exploded. And that leads us into something else you wanted to talk about, is the 7-year stretch that I went without a paycheck because the market imploded. But we can talk about that in a second, because you had other questions you wanted to ask about the marketing journey and the customer journey and awareness. So I'll try and answer those quickly. But, the thing about the customer journey and the customer awareness and the customer journey and the 5 stages of all of that's always been the case. You have to create awareness, and then you have to cultivate a relationship with that customer. You have to nurture the relationship, and then you have to keep building that relationship with them, because ultimately, at the end of the day, people will buy from people they know, like, and trust. That's what it all comes down to. Unless it is a product like anything that Apple makes, people line up days in advance because they just have to have that next thing. That is like a status thing. It is an affiliation thing. That is a very particular niche audience that they have to have that next Apple product, and they have to have it the day that it comes out. And you may have a product, like, for example, the company I'm with now, Siligrams, they have a product that is very easy to understand. The second you see a picture of the product itself, you know exactly what it is, and either you buy it or you don't, or you save the tab, because you know you're going to come back and buy that product later on. But the product is so obvious, you don't really have to do anything about customer awareness or the customer journey. If they have found you, via some paid media, or they saw you on television, or they saw you somewhere else, or they saw it in someone else's house, if like they'll know what it is instantly. If they like it, they're going to buy it. It just happens that quick, which is why the company's growth exploded in their first year, because no one had ever seen a product like this before, and no one else is doing it except the people who ripped us off. So yeah, that's the thing about being first to market. And I learned this with GoGo Gear. You can be first to market, but trust me, there are going to be like 10 people who copy what you do and will have nowhere near the expenses that you incurred, because you paid for all the development for them to go make money off of your product that they steal. But it's just the nature of the business. But anyways, but it's very rare to have a product like that, where it's so obvious, it's easy to understand. You don't even have to explain it. You just show a picture of it and people know what it is and they buy it. But most people don't have those kinds of products. And so you really do have to spend a lot of time cultivating those relationships with prospective customers. And so you spend a lot of time doing email marketing. It's the least expensive form of marketing there is, and it's among the most effective, because most people don't unsubscribe from their emails. They will just delete the emails. So you just have to plan to have something in their email box every day until they actually do unsubscribe. But in the meantime, you've got an opportunity to sell to them. So, I think that the customer journey has been the same ever since the beginning. You have to create the awareness, and then if it is a product that is seasonal, well, you have to, cultivate that relationship all year long until it comes the time where they have to buy that product for that particular season. Like Mother's Day is coming up. And so there are people who specialize in nothing but Mother's Day products, and they make all of their money the last couple of weeks into next week, because that's just the nature of their business. For other people, they sell products that have to be replaced, like the big subscription services, the Dollar Shave Club, or other things where people are using up products like True Earth with the laundry detergent. These are products that people have to have. They use them every day in their home and they run out of them. And the service you're providing is the convenience of delivering it to them on time, just as they need the next set of items that they're buying from you. So those are really unique situations that are, there's not a real heavy lift there, because once you've got them as a customer, you're going to always have them. So I think that for the majority of products out there, you don't have the luxury of that. And so you really do have to go through the process of, cultivating that customer base. And, you're going to spend a lot of money cultivating them and nurturing them before you ever get a sale out of them. But once you have a customer, if you have a program in place that's designed to keep them as a customer for life, like for GoGo Gear, there are people that still buy from the company, 15 years after its inception, because they were loyal to that product from day one, and they have continued to buy replacement pairs over the years as they wear out over time. Just because, when you're wearing a pair of pants every single day on your bike, they're going to wear out over time. They're just, no piece of clothing is designed to last forever. So, it's the same for every customer. It's like, you have a need for something and you have to figure out how to meet that need. And there are a lot of people out there that have things that will meet that need. And it's your job to figure out, which one of these things is going to best meet my need. And because today people are really busy, they don't have a lot of time to do homework on or research on which is the best product. And that's why they now go to Amazon, because that's where they get all of the customer review information. And people very heavily depend on customer reviews for making their purchasing decisions. In fact, people won't even look at the product. They'll just look at what the reviews are. And, it's like going to a hotel. For me, I don't care what the hotel is. I look at the reviews and I ask, all I'm looking for is how comfortable is the bed? Because that's the only reason I'm in a hotel. I need a bed to sleep and I need a good night's sleep. And so, I don't care what the price is. I don't care what, the location. You find me the hotel that has every one of the reviews says, oh my God, the bed is great. It's like, that's the hotel I'm going to, because it meets my needs, as opposed to all of the other amenities. I don't need a swimming pool in a hotel. I don't want to be in water that a lot of other people have been in. You know what I mean? It's like, yeah. So, the customer reviews are really critical. And that too is part of the customer awareness journey, is that people are coming to understand who you are and what you do and what your products are and the quality of your products based on what other people who've bought your products have said about it. And so that's another part of your marketing that has to be in place. And so, if you are selling products and you don't have a customer review page on your site or a way for people to evaluate your products, and you're not selling on Amazon, it's going to be really hard to convince people to buy your product because you have no proof. Like, where's your social proof? Social media is great because people will leave comments all the time, and they won't be in the form of reviews. You just read through the posts of a company and you can tell kind of, how do people feel. And it usually has to do with the customer service department and their unhappiness with it. So,
Right.
the
So
customer journey itself is the same. you know, it has been the same since the beginning of time. It's just about making people aware of your product, why it's best for them, and why they need to buy it from you instead of your competitor.
no, that's really, really good info. I want to bring it back to a point where you mentioned like the sharks had no idea who
Hmm.
your ideal audience was. And
Hmm.
I wanted to ask you a question because with the rise of aggregators, VCs, and angel investors, companies are becoming increasingly noisier. Would you
Yeah.
be able to speak a little into saying no to people that are bigger than you and balancing between just taking the money and sticking to your vision?
Well, yeah, absolutely. Like in the case of what happened with Shark Tank, we were not going to do business with anybody who was going to tell us what to do with our business when they didn't know anything about our business. Like, for anyone who's going to invest in your business, if they don't have deep experience or have someone with deep experience they plan to put into the company, as like a lot of times management teams will be replaced by a team that has been brought in by the investors. And sometimes it's rightly so, because a lot of times founders, they're brand new and they don't have the experience and they don't know how to scale a company. And I've worked with several companies like that where, there were teams of us being brought in because we had deep experience and we knew how to scale businesses. That, the founders get replaced because that's the only way the business is going to grow, because scaling a business is very different from starting a business. And so, you know, when you have VCs or angel investors or even big corporate investors who will want to do a takeover and stuff, a lot of times what they're looking at is they're looking at how big your email list is. They're looking at, how many customers do you have? They're really looking to basically poach your customers to bring them into a different company's customer base. They're just buying your customers. And that's not an acquisition I'm interested in, or being part of acquired by a company who's just trying to buy my customers, because then my product really it doesn't fit into the equation for what the acquiring company is looking to do. And they don't tend to do very well when they do that. It's way better to invest in a company and help that company grow than to just, buy up the email list, because now you have like 100 million more subscribers. That's great if you're looking for cable TV, but not when you're looking to sell, a product that really doesn't make sense for this population over here. And so, as a company, when you're looking to grow and there are people who are interested in investing in your company, it's a very challenging relationship to keep those people out of the daily operation of your company. You'd obviously have to report to what would become a new board of directors of your company, and they will all think that they know better than you do. But the reality is you're in the trenches every single day. You know your customers better than anyone else, and you know your product better than anyone else. And anyone else with, experience, they can offer up advice, but it's not going to be directly related to the specific thing that you're doing. like they may know manufacturing, but they're not going to understand, how we manufacture our products. And that was one of the issues with the shark that we did the deal with. He manufactures clothing, but we manufacture protective gear that looks like regular clothing. And all the factories he wanted to hook us up with, they didn't have any experience with, the kind of textiles we use that are about protecting people when, in the event they fall on the pavement. And the sewing is different, and the components are different, and the raw materials are all different. And you can't just go to some sewing factory and say, here, sew this. It's like, no, the fit is completely different. And like, for example, if you're wearing a shirt or a jacket, it's cut a certain way because you don't expect your arms to be out all the time, where you're stretching up in the shoulder area. And for a lot of people who ride sport bikes, they're bent over, their arms are forward, their jacket comes up in the back, which means the jackets always have to be longer. And you have to have a lot of give in the shoulder area. Otherwise, they can't reach out and hold the handlebars, not to mention you've got these big protective pads in there. So, nobody understands the intricacies of anyone else's business. You know it as the founder and creator, you know it better than anyone else. And so why would you say yes just because there's money there, if that money is going to take you in a direction that does not get you where you want to go as the founder of that company? It doesn't matter. Like, it would be better for you to just sell your company to someone else and leave it than to take the money and stay in it and have people, run right over you because they think they know better than you do. You're just going to end up with more money and a lot more unhappiness. And so you have to be prepared. You just have to wait until you find the right partner. And you may feel like there's only one chance. People always feel this, that if they don't take it, there's never going to be another chance. But there's always another chance. You just have to wait. And the right opportunity is on the horizon. It's just not here yet. So you keep yourself busy doing the thing you're doing, and you keep working whatever contacts you have, and you keep talking to people and telling them what you're doing, what you're looking for. And the weird thing is that those investors usually come in weird ways. They just like come out of nowhere. And an example of this is that I knew someone who was involved in a project that they were looking for investors. And I happened to mention it just quite casually in conversation with a group of people. And one of the people in that group became one of the investors. There was no relationship between any of these people. And this was just like a matter of like it was a casual offhanded remark that I made about it. But there was someone in the room that it deeply resonated with. And right after that conversation, they said, I want to know more about this. And I put the people together, and boom, the investment was made. I don't put investor people together with people looking for investment. It's just, you never know who you're going to talk to, which is why I will always talk to anybody who wants to talk to me, because I don't know who they know. They don't know who I know. And there's always a connection somewhere in there. And so my feeling around anybody that is a potential investor in your company, you have to be prepared to interview them, and interview them hard, and interview them like you're going to hire them for a job. You're hiring them as your investor, not the other way around. And that's the way people with money like it. They like to make you feel like you're less than, that they know more than you do, because people with money always think they know more. Well, a lot of people with money got that money from their family. They don't know a lot more. They just got born into the right family. And so for other people who have founded companies that are looking to invest, those are better people to look at. And if they're looking at investing in your company because they're interested in the sales growth and how quickly they could scale that company and then potentially sell it off for many times multipliers, the multiple would be many times greater than if you were to do it yourself. It's like, yeah, that's a good partner, because, some people want to stay in their business for like 20 years. And I'm like, dang, why do you want to do that? Take your money and run. Go start something else. Who wants the hassle of having to, retail is just a nightmare. You're on call 24/7 when you're in the retail business, especially now, because, Amazon has taught people that they can get their products tomorrow, if not today. And they've taught them that you don't have to pay for shipping. And they've taught them that you can just order anything you want and return all of it. And the rest of us who are out there is like, okay, I now have to pay for shipping, which now costs 3 times more than it did when I started. I have to deliver it how quickly? So now that's costing me even more. And I have to pay for the return from the customer. And then when they want to exchange something, I have to pay for that return to get it back to them. So now my margins have disappeared because there are other entrants in the market that are making it so competitive, not even for my product, but the fact that Amazon is a place where you can get pretty much anything that you want. I now have to compete against the biggest grocery store in the world, which means I have to spend more money, just trying to capture what little market share I can of people willing to buy from someone other than Amazon. And so, like you want to spend 20 years doing that after you built your business. And, you had mentioned before, you want to talk to me about me going through 7 years of building that business with no paycheck. Yeah. You want to spend how many years living like that and doing that? Why? I mean, I did it because I didn't have to work for anybody else. And I had a great idea and I brought it to market. It was really fun and it was sexy and it was exciting. And then it got really tiring because, here comes Amazon. And what did you just do to my business?
Amazon has truly screwed us
Oh
over.
my God. Every small business has paid the price for Amazon, and consumers they have no clue.
No, so I want to talk a little bit about emotions. You mentioned going 7 years without a paycheck.
Uh-huh.
So as entrepreneurs, we usually tie our personal self-worth with the success as well as the failure of our business. So one moment you can be at the mountaintop, and then the next you can be like at the lowest. And the funniest thing is that can be just within a single day. So how do you personally approach this, and how do you coach others to do the same?
Well, it's usually in the beginning of a new business when your emotions are flying high because you have this fantasy about what this is all going to be, and you have control over your fantasies. You can make the fantasy be anything you want it to be. So, of course, it's always the best. It's like great. It's wonderful. It feels like the best thing ever. And then the reality sets in. And now you have to deal with things that you never expected you'd have to deal with, like people stealing your product, like stealing your intellectual property, and now they're competing against you. Like that's a really hard pill to swallow. And it's very emotional when things like that happen to you because it's like a punch to the gut, and that you feel violated when people do things like that. And so there's no escaping the emotions with betrayal. That's as old as time. And when those kind of things happen, that you just have to ride it out and manage yourself as best you can. But there are other things that happen. Like, the other day, our Facebook ad account got shut down, like out of nowhere. We hadn't done anything. It's like we're minding our business. And then all of a sudden our ad account has been banned. It's like, what? And so, and we rely very heavily on our Facebook ads to generate traffic and sales. And I mean, it costs us thousands of dollars in sales for our ad account being banned for just 1/2 of a day. It was thousands. And I mean, you want to talk about being frantic. The founders of the company were like completely frantic. And I've been through this rodeo before, and it's like, you know what? You can't get upset about it. You just have to figure out how to solve the problem. And by midday, it was just an algorithm thing. And we reached out to somebody and they reactivated it. And then, we had hired a contractor to handle our Amazon account, and he did something. It wasn't, it was completely benign what he did, but then our Amazon account got shut down for a policy violation. And that cost us how many thousands of dollars. And so, again, the guys are just dying because this is their money, and I was in that situation before where it was my money. So I'm much more relaxed about it when it's not my money, but also I know that you're in it for the long game. And in the beginning, you're in it for the minute, because you can't see the long game because you haven't had the long game yet. And so you get everything going, you're in control of everything. And then one day, you realize that maybe you made a mistake in the product that you are offering because nobody's buying it. And then what do? You've got all this inventory you paid for and you have no sales. And like, it always feels like your life is coming to an end because things didn't work out the way you had planned them to work out. And what I always say to people is, when those moments come, you can't react to it. You realize the situation you're in, you have to pivot. You have to figure out, how do you spin it? How do you pivot? I remember a situation a long time ago where, like, it was like in one of the first iterations or first generations of the products that we made. And we made a huge mistake on something because of we were novices. We didn't understand how critical certain things were to our audience. And we manufactured a whole bunch of product that was missing a key element. And I just made up a story about that it was actually intentional. That, I had to spin it in some way because we had to move this product. And there was no escaping the fact that this one thing was missing. And I came up with a way of talking about it that, made it sound like it was a benefit. And then, we blew through all of that inventory, and then we went and made more and put that element in it, which was critical. And so it's like, this is part of the sales piece, is that, people's emotions, they let them run away with them because they don't know how to respond in the moment. And because I've been in sales and marketing for so long, I always look at, it doesn't matter how bad the situation is, I always look at it and I'm trying to figure out, okay, how do I sell this? How am I going to turn this into something where is my sales advantage in this? And it becomes like a game for me. It's a very serious situation, but for me, the real challenge and the delight that I get out of it is figuring out how to get myself out of that situation in a way that I can turn it to my advantage. And so that's how I have managed, my emotions through all of this. But, going back to the beginning of when I started my company, or when my business partner and I started the company, there would be things that happened at the factory where I can remember when I was in China. I flew to China because we were just getting ready to start the first production of our product, and we had a delivery date in mind. And it became clear that the factory was not going to deliver on time. And like, the consumer didn't even know the product was coming to market yet, but I was just having a complete meltdown in China, me and my iPhone translator, because I don't speak any Mandarin, and they, the business units of the factories, they speak enough English that, you can communicate and so forth. But I was just decompensating right there in the factory because it's like, why aren't you making my stuff? Why aren't you sewing? Where are your people? And I'm just like losing my mind. And as the years passed, I realized that I have no control over what goes on in offshore manufacturing, and they have ways of doing things. And, I learned really important lessons that, I, as a white American, going around and flailing about and demanding that things get done, gets the opposite result when you're manufacturing overseas. It's like they don't appreciate being treated poorly. And I wasn't treating them poorly. It was just, I was expressing my frustration. And it's like, no, that's not how we do business here. So I learned a lot of lessons about my emotions being on display just by the way people were responding to me in the manufacturing process. And it's like, oh, okay, that is not how we do things. And I called up a guy that I knew who had done a lot of business in China. And he said, Arlene, you're going to go back there and you're going to apologize profusely for being upset, because they will not talk to you until you get control of yourself. And so that's exactly what I did. And the next day, everything was underway. And so these are really tough lessons that you learn, because you know how it is now, because we've got phones and computers, people are just firing off nasty grams to one another and shooting their mouths off on social media and giving people the finger when they're driving down the street. They're so aggressive and angry and hostile. And it's their emotions. They're just not self-regulated, and their emotions are just all over the place. And it's like, we have turned into an uncivilized group of people all over what? It's stupid. None of this means anything. And if you're in it to win it, you're in it for the long term. It may be 3 years, it may be 5 years, it may be 10 years. But in the beginning, when you're starting a business, it feels like everything is at stake, that you've put this money into it and that your life is going to end if this doesn't work out. And I'm going to be a failure. And all my friends are going to think I'm a horrible business person. And my wife or my husband, they told me not to do it. And then I'm going to have to answer to them. And my children are going to be disappointed in me. And it's like, hold the phone, people. All you're doing is making a stupid garment, for heaven's sake. This is not life and death. It's not worth investing all of this energy in whatever. And, more relationships are ruined by entrepreneurs who get all bent out of shape and upset about stuff. Then is worth it. And then, people will work in certain ways where they feel like they have to be working 24/7 on their business. And if you're doing that, you're actually not working, because there isn't that much work to do that requires you to be like on it 24/7. All you're doing is just showing how much you feel you're out of control, because all of this on it is you trying to exert some control over a situation you feel you have no control over. And so, when you go into it and your emotions are flying high, you really have to take a step back and say, what is this really? Because this is not life and death. Your life is not going to end if you lose your money. It's going to be really uncomfortable. It's going to be painful. And, starting a business at the height of the recession in 2008, I didn't start it knowing that there was a recession coming. I had committed and my money was in it. And then the recession hit and the bottom fell out. And so it's like, oh, great. I've just committed all of this money and I have no customers because nobody's buying anything. And now I'm screwed because I'm manufacturing all this shit. It's on its way here. And now what am I going to do? And it felt like the world was ending. And so what did I do? I mean, all of the money that came in from the business had to go back into the business. It wasn't like we were going to get paid anything. And so for 7 years, the first 7 years of building that business, I was hustling other work. I was working that job full time of building that business, and I was hustling freelance work the entire time. Because how else am I going to pay my rent or my mortgage? How am I going to pay my basic expenses? Because I had just come out of a job where I was making a lot of money, and then I lost that job in the recession, because I started the company while I was still at that job, because I knew at some point I was going to leave it, but I needed to have the security of the job where it was paying me that big money. And then I was creating this thing on the side. And just as I started creating it, I lost my job and all the money that went with it. And so now I was like, oh my God, I'm so screwed. I've lost my job and I've just taken all the money I have and dumped it into a business that's starting at the beginning of a recession. It's like, I'm going to die here. I'm literally going to die. Well, obviously I didn't die because I'm sitting here talking to you, Sean. But I went 7 years where I was hustling that whole time, but it was all in service to my belief that this product was the right thing. It had its own market. There was a market to be had. I could capture a significant portion of market share because I knew the audience. The audience was hungry for what I had to offer, and it was just going to take time to make people aware that the product was there. And that's why I was willing to say, all right, I'm going to do whatever I have to do. And if it's 7 years without any money coming in from this business, then I'll go find money somewhere else. And unfortunately, at that time, there was no Uber. I couldn't go be an Uber driver. That was another thing I was thinking, is like, I was way ahead of my time with all these ideas, like with your chatbot, right? It's like, somebody needs to deliver shit, because there's all these people who are working from home and they don't have time to go to the grocery. They don't have time to go to the dry cleaner. They need to somebody needs to just bring me things, because that's my favorite thing. I like when people bring me things so I don't have to go get them myself. And so, I could have been an Uber driver that whole time. I could have been doing all kinds of things had the technology been available, but none of that existed. And so you just figure out what else you can do. And I'll tell you, like, when you go from making big 6-figure paycheck to nothing, and your unemployment check is like $450, and you were like, it was like that for 18 months, where there was just no money coming in the beginning after I lost my job. And I had started this company, so I had taken every dollar I had and put it in the company, so I had no cash. And I remember I went on the early version of Upwork.com. I think it was called freelancer.com at the time. And 18 months later, I got my first freelance project writing, and it was writing 5 blog posts for $25. And when I got that $25, and I spent a lot of time writing those posts, right? These were all like 500 words a piece. And that's why I got paid $5 for each blog post, right? Because I have done a lot of writing throughout my career because it's part of sales and marketing. And so I'm telling you, that $25, Sean, was the most satisfying $25. It was worth more than my paycheck. It was worth more than anything to me, because that $25 represented $25 that was coming in instead of $25 that was going out. And it also signaled to me that there was a way for me to make money somewhere else other than the job that I had been in. And so it was a long 7 years of no money coming in, because I saw the money coming into the bank account for the company, but I couldn't take any of it, because then we wouldn't have the money to pay for everything that had to be paid for. Because people don't realize, like, when you're manufacturing a product that's expensive to make, like our garments, they averaged between $45 and $60 each to make. And we were retailing them for like $159. So there wasn't much margin by the time we got them into the country and paid for shipping and all this kind of stuff. The amount of capital that you have to invest in getting enough inventory in so that you can sell through an entire season, it was hundreds of thousands of dollars. And I couldn't take any of it. The sales were coming, but I couldn't take the money. And so you just watch it, it's like, wow, I'm building this really great business, this multi-million-dollar business, and I'm hustling $25 blog posts. It's like, this is pathetic. Like, I'm doing this, why? But then eventually it paid off, and then I was able to exit the company. But you want to talk about a long game. That's a long game before you finally get a paycheck. And fortunately, I have a lot of skills that I could be hustling a lot of other work. But for many people, they don't have those skills, or don't realize that they have those skills, or they don't feel comfortable just talking to people, say, hey, who do you know? Or I'm looking for this, or I know how to do that, or do you know anybody, kind of thing. Like, I was out hustling like crazy, and I didn't care what I had to do. I would go work at a 7-Eleven. I would go sweep the floors. I didn't care. Now, keep in mind, when you're thinking about emotions and people being attached to, their investment in how they see themselves and their identity being associated with this business they've created and the success and everything. Think about this. I have a PhD. I used to be a university professor at one point, many careers ago, like in my 30s. And I was willing to just like go work at a 7-Eleven. Like, you could perceive that as a fall from grace. But I was building something, and, I don't care that I have a PhD. It's just something I did at one point, and now I'm doing something else. And so I never associated what I was doing or how much money I was making with anything to do with me. It has nothing to do with my identity. My identity is me. It's, who am I? I'm this person. I'm a good person. I treat people well. Like, at the end of the day, that's what it comes down to. It's not like how much money I have. It's like, I don't care how much money you have. I don't care what you do with your money, and I don't care how much money I have. I never had big aspirations for big money. I mean, it's nice to have big money, but then you pay big taxes, and then you have, like, the more money you have, the more problems you have. It's kind of like when you make a product, the more variations of that product that you make, the more problems you have in your business and the more expensive it is. Why? Because if you have 10 variations, like we made a pair of protective pants that had 13 different sizes, which meant we had to buy inventory for 13 sizes, and we would have people trying to figure out which of those 13 sizes made sense for them. And it's like, oh, I should have bought one size down. Instead of going small, medium, large, we're like, no, let's go with women's sizings, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, all the way up to 26. Oh, that was really great. Smart. Stupid idea, Arlene. Why? Because I had to buy inventory for size 2 through 26 and carry all that inventory and just wait for somebody to come along and say, I need a size 22 instead of a size 20. It's like more the mistakes that you make that you learn along the way. But think about it, size 2 to 20 or 26, all that inventory has to sit on a shelf somewhere in a fulfillment center, and you pay for that stuff to sit on the shelf. So now I got all this stuff sitting on shelves that's not selling because they're random sizes that, we sell like twice a year. And yet we're paying to keep the stuff there because we want to have it available to our customers. But it has actually cost us money to have that. So these are like all the kinds of things that you learn along the way. And it's like, oh my God, that was so stupid. Well, am I going to say I'm a stupid entrepreneur? It's like, no, this is just the kind of stuff that you learn as you do these things and you don't do it again. So my identity has absolutely nothing to do with what I'm doing. Where people's identities really take a hit is when they lose their job, because it is all about economic security. It's about the way that you provide for your family. It's about every aspiration you have for your family. And when you lose your income and your earning power, that is when everybody's identity and ego takes the biggest hit, because it's so hard to recover from. But I've been down that rodeo a number of times where the recession or, bad behavior in the workplace that I had one instance where, somebody in the company was sexually harassing one of my employees, and I was not going to keep quiet about it, and I got fired. It was totally retaliatory, and I signed a non-disclosure agreement. I could never talk about it, but that's what happened. And I was making a lot of money, and then one day I was without a job. And it's like, dang, what am I going to do? And you just figure it out. You just have to keep moving. You never let any of these things prevent you from moving forward, because my philosophy in life is, what's your next move? I even had a podcast once called What's Your Next Move? Because it's like, what is your next move? Because if you get yourself thinking about what your next move is, then you're not thinking about how you feel about what has just happened. It's like, I got to do something. What's my next move? And that has driven me through all of these moments where there was so much uncertainty and insecurity that I have to get control of the situation, which means I have to get control of my emotions. And that means it's like, what is my next move? Because if I can make a move, at least something will start moving. And then I can actually feel like I'm in control of the situation. I at least know something is happening. It may not be the right thing, but at least something is happening. And then I can sort of like get myself back together again. And then we move forward and everything calms down and you just figure out what you need to do.
So good points, Arlene. Thank you so much for sharing. I want to move a little bit into the direction of Siligram. So to me, it's extremely focused around the drinking space. I might be completely wrong, but would you be able to speak a little into how you guys acquire customers? I know you mentioned like a lot of the traffic comes from Facebook, but would you say that you have traffic coming from SEO or maybe even TV commercials?
Well, you know what? Our traffic is half organic and half coming from paid media. And that organic traffic, a lot of that is coming from our email list. Our email list is very, very productive. And our open rates on our emails averages almost 53%. It's huge. And we're emailing almost every day. And, every 50% of our email list, every single email that goes out, they open it. And every email makes money for us. So we have a lot of direct traffic that is organic, that is coming from our email list. And so that is very potent. And so we are doubling down on our email list and growing that email list even bigger than it already is, in part because when you have these situations like Facebook shuts off your ad account or your Amazon account goes dark, or your social media is no longer productive, or it's so expensive, your paid media is so expensive that you basically can't afford to even be there anymore, because your cost of acquisition is more than what you sell your product for. You have to find other ways of creating traffic to your website. And so, we've got, our ads going out on Facebook and Instagram. We've been testing some ads on TikTok. We have Google ads that have been really productive for us. Our Bing ads through Microsoft have been even more productive in terms of, the return on ad spend, although the ad spend is nothing compared to what we're spending on Google ads and so forth. But it is another channel that's quite effective. And we found a big difference between desktop and mobile, where the desktop, our traffic on desktop is actually coming from our Bing ads, whereas the rest of it is coming on mobile. So we were really shocked when we saw that. So it's like, holy mackerel, what is going on here? And so anyways, we've just doubled down on our Bing ads. And then we've got, the SEO is important to us, but because we have such a unique kind of product, you can really, like, the SEO is really limited to, it's personalized, it's ice cubes, it's mold silicone, it's molds. So there aren't a whole lot of keywords that you can be using to describe what the product is. And people either know what they're looking for or they don't. It's not like we're going to go into some category and say, oh, here, summer treats, buy your popsicle mold. No, it's like people know what they're looking for. And the question is, do we have enough content out there for search purposes that they end up finding us? And then we have, a lot of content going on out on social media. And then recently, we have had quite a bit of activity and traffic come from appearances on the Today Show and Good Morning America. We've been on Good Morning America's, what do they call it? Steals and Deals or whatever. They feature products every week. They have a segment where they'll feature maybe like 10 products. And we do a lot of business off of those appearances. So we were just on Good Morning America in the early part of April, and we did a month's worth of business in just one day in terms of sales. And so the traffic comes from there. And now we're looking at doing advertising on the streaming services now that that's available. And then we are seriously looking at going back to cable television and doing, like a 30-second, not an infomercial. It'll be the same ad that we run on Facebook or something else, just the high definition, technical quality. So, we're doing what a lot of other people are doing. Is like, there's your paid media, you're on all the social channels, you've got Google's, you've got all your Google ads. Wherever you can put your product out there, you put it. But our goal is to try and get our cost of acquisition down as much as possible. And because it's so expensive to advertise on Facebook right now, we've had to sort of change the way we're thinking about that paid media, more in terms of, okay, it costs this much for that conversion, because it could be upwards of $100 per conversion on a product that doesn't sell for $100. But what it's doing is it's getting them onto our email list, and eventually they will buy something else from us, because our products are heavily focused on gifts. They're 90% of our buyers buy them as gifts for other people, because they're personalized. And you can, as you pointed out before, we're focused on the beverage industry, primarily alcoholic beverages. Like for people who drink whiskey, this is a gift that a lot of people give, because they're giant ice cubes that go in the large glasses that are for certain drinks. I don't drink. So I really don't know what our product is used for. I know how to sell it, but like as a consumer of it, I'd be more inclined to put it into a large glass of iced tea or lemonade or something like that, if you've got a large enough glass. And so, we are just getting ready to launch a new website for our company, where we are merging all of our products. We actually have 3 brands. One is the beverage space, which is Siligrams, and then we have a space where we make molds for dog treats. and that's under a different brand. And then a third brand is molds for candle making and chocolate making and soap. And so now we're actually bringing all of these molds into one website where we'll have things that are beverage related and pet related. It's more like we're treating it as like curated content or curated products that make up like all of the products that you might have in your home, where you can be doing things together with your family or friends. And all of these molds kind of create special moments among the people that you love. And so we're merging all of the products so that we can increase to be quite direct about it, we're able to increase our average order value if we have more products to sell people that fall outside of they just want personalized ice cubes. It's like, well, if you like that personalized, we've got these other things too. And so that's part of the strategy of, our paid media is so expensive. We have to find a way to get our average order value up. And so you have to have add-on products. You have to have other things that they can just say, oh, that's really cute. And it's like $20, and they can dump it into their shopping cart, and they don't think twice about it. So that's kind of what's happening with our traffic and our paid media strategy.
Can I just say the marketer in me is freaking out because
Why?
you do treat things so differently. When you said like your desktop traffic consisted of people coming in from your Bing ads, my mind exploded. When you said your open rates for email were 50% and you send them every single day, my mind exploded again. And then you said you
Yeah.
sold an entire month's worth with TV. It's like in the very small Twitter space that I'm in, everyone's talking about, oh, push more on Facebook ads, push more on Facebook ads. And it's always so restrictive. Like people don't
Yeah.
talk about retail, people don't talk about TV. Bing is completely untalked about. So if
Yeah.
I want to dive a little bit deeper into email and TV, if you don't mind. So
Yeah,
for
absolutely.
email, what would you say you guys are doing that contributes to that 50% open rate daily?
Well, I think it's that we have an audience that's very interested in the product that we make. All the people on our email list are people who've bought from us in the past, and we haven't introduced any new products in the last year. They see the same product over and over again, but it's what we talk about in the emails that they like. Like we'll include drink recipes, or we'll give it'll just be an email that gives them ideas for how they can use the mold. Like for example, we have one mold that's a round ball. It's I guess for whiskey glasses, because it's larger than 2 inches all the way around, and so this is a big ball. And we sent it out, and we actually put orange juice in it, and it came out beautifully, and it says cheers on the side of it. And we showed it next to a bottle of champagne, and we sent out an email saying that this is the new way to have a mimosa, because you have to have orange juice and champagne. And so all of a sudden people were buying the whiskey mold, because it's like, oh, I didn't realize I could use it for that. And other times, so then our social media person, she took one of the molds and she put like dried flowers in it. And then it was really beautiful when it was just sitting in the tray with the water in it. And then when it came out, there were these gorgeous ice cubes that had been monogrammed, or they had a picture on them, or what, I forget what was on it. But then the beautiful flowers are inside the ice cube. So, we're just providing content that, is based on our products, but is giving people just ideas. And all of the emails are very visually rich. So I think people like opening them because they're very colorful. And, for Cinco de Mayo, we had the tequila in there, and, it was like very festive looking in the email. And then, so, people just like seeing what's there, because, sooner or later they know they're going to need to buy a gift for someone. And, inevitably every email generates sales for us. And when I mentioned that average 52, I think it's 52.8% open rate. What's interesting is that when we were on Good Morning America back in April, we had so many orders come in on that one day. There was just no way our production team was going to be able to produce all of that product in a very short amount of time. We only have a certain capacity. And this was way beyond our capacity. And it took weeks for us to get all of those orders out. And so I came up with this idea that we're going to send an email to this specific group of people every single day until we get the last order out. And every day, these were not pre-written emails. Every day, the email went out with a story that had a bunch of bad jokes and puns. They were so terrible. And so I had like a 63% open rate on that list was like small compared to our big list. And that list was just those buyers that came in off of Good Morning America who'd never heard of our company before. And so I thought, you know what, we're just going to tell them jokes and keep them entertained while they're waiting, because we knew that they were going to be waiting a while. And so every day, every morning I'd come into the office and I'd have to figure out, well, what am I going to say to them? Because I can't just say, okay, here's your joke of the day. So, it was like, we have these dogs in the office and I would be telling stories about what the dogs were doing and that they were holding me hostage in my office because I had started feeding them peanut butter pretzels, and I don't own a dog and I didn't realize when you feed them that they now become yours. So anyways, it was just like slice of life every day, something showing up in their inbox just to make them laugh, because we didn't want to have a whole slew of emails coming in with people upset that they hadn't gotten their order. And so the only way that we could manage that was to be communicating with them every day. And even though they weren't getting their order that day, they were getting some bad jokes. And so one lady actually wrote back, because we said, do you have any bad jokes we can use? And one lady actually wrote back, she had a bad joke. So it just became really funny, but it was incredible. And some of those emails actually generated more sales from people who hadn't even gotten the first thing that they bought. But I was really shocked at how many people every single day they were opening that email. And so, you have to be really creative about how you're communicating with people, and figure out what's going to resonate with them. And I know everybody loves a good joke, and that if you can entertain people, that they'll stay with you because they know you're trying, and they appreciate you communicating with them. Because my approach was, if I write an email to them every single day, they know another one is coming. And so they don't have to worry about their product. They know that they haven't been forgotten, which is often the problem with customer service, is that you'll send a message and you don't hear from someone for a week, because the customer service people are not thinking about what's going on for the customer, that they're frustrated, they haven't heard from anyone. And Amazon taught them that they should get their order tomorrow. And now you, in a personalized business, take 3 weeks to get a product to them, because on average it takes us 15 business days to finish an order. So it's not quick turnaround. So you have to find a way to keep them engaged so that you don't lose them along the way, because those people write reviews. And in fact, we had one lady, she wrote a review. She says, okay, you guys take the cake. I'm buying you from Ever because you've got the best emails of anyone I've ever gotten. You really know how to do marketing. Oh my God. I was just like jumping around the office that day because I was like, yes, my ideas worked. I knew it. I knew I was right.
I'm so angry at how smart you are. Oh my God, that is such a good idea. So
yeah, and you'd be amazed you'd be amazed, Sean, at how funny ChatGPT is, because where am I going to get all these jokes from? So I would go to ChatGPT and I would describe it. I would tell it the story that I was going to tell, like about the dogs and whatever. And I'd say, give me 10 really bad jokes. And usually there'd be one in there that would just make me laugh out loud. I had a couple of really great Adele jokes that came from ChatGPT, and I'm like, oh, you're funny. Because then last night, everybody's talking about how Bard is way better than ChatGPT, but you know what? It doesn't have it does not have a good sense of humor. Go to ChatGPT for your jokes.
If you want to write a joke book, you know where to go right now.
That's exactly right.
So I want to talk a little bit about what ran through your head when you realized that majority of your desktop visitors actually came from Bing traffic ads. Like, I know you mentioned it was a shock, and to me, it's still a shock. Like, wow.
Well, you know what? There were a few things that I thought. First of all, I went back to our Shopify analytics to see how much traffic historically had been coming in via mobile versus desktop. And it was disproportionately, like it was 95% coming in from mobile. And so I just thought, okay, we're a mobile company. Yeah, it's fine. We're just going to focus on mobile. And then I looked a little more closely one day and saw that there was like a high percentage of orders coming in from desktop. And I'm like, what the heck? Where did this come from? And our average age customer is between like 35 and 55. And so when our contractor who does our Google ads and our Bing ads for us sent some data to me, I went back to him and I said, what is going on here with these Bing ads? Number one, how is it that they are so much more profitable for us? It's not a big ad spend compared to what we're doing elsewhere, but it was noticeable enough, the return that we were getting on that ad spend. And then I looked closer and it was dominated by desktop users. And I'm thinking, okay, these are people who are at work, and I'm going to bet they're older. And I'm going to bet they're using Bing as their browser, which means they're on PCs. And I'm thinking, oh, these people are shopping at work. Like a lot of people are shopping on their phones, but these people were shopping while they were working on their PC desktop, that somehow, whatever browser they're using through their company, they're using Bing to do other browsing. I mean, that's just speculation on my part, but it was, and my guess was that they were going to probably be older, because I don't know anybody who uses Bing as a search engine. It's like, Bing, what? I didn't even know they were still around. It's like, holy crap. They certainly are around and people are using it. And that they have to be people that were in the Microsoft space, like heavily dominated by Microsoft, and that they started using Bing. It's just like people still using an AOL email address, or people who go to MySpace. Like, who even knew that thing was still there? And so it's the same thing, that clearly there are people using Bing as their search engine. And so I was like, dang. So I went back to the contract and I said, you better start throwing more money there. I want to see what happens here. And sure enough, I mean, again, the Google ads dominate, but if you've got another sales channel, which there's Bing, why would you not take advantage of it? If you can get a few bucks every day or $1,000 every day, add it up at the end of the year, that adds up to a lot of money. And sorry, I have to plug in my computer here. And the ads were so inexpensive compared to the Google ads and the social media ads. It's like, well, yeah, like let's double down over here and see what else comes of this. So that was in all of the paid media exploration that I was doing with Siligrams. That was the thing that shocked me the most, because it's like, Bing ads, where's this coming from? And then I looked at the ROAS. I'm like, what? Yeah, so who knew?
Oh my goodness, this is so good. The final question is for people who are looking to get into TV advertising, like what are a couple of tips that you would give them, like a couple of common pitfalls and like things that people tend to overlook on these commercials?
Well, when you think about TV advertising and you go back into the world of infomercials, you know that the quality of the infomercials is really terrible. The production quality of infomercials is horrible. And that's part of the appeal. And the production values are horrible because they're not spending any money on it. And that that goes to prove or show you that it's not about the production values, it's about the offer. And so, you have to have a certain, not production value, but technical quality to the video itself. It could be a horrible video content wise, but it has to be broadcast quality. It can't just be something, like a 640 by 640 that you're going to put on broadcast television. That's not going to work. So you have to have the right, the right technical requirements met. But other than that, obviously you want to hit them. It's just like in social media. You've got to have that hook within the first 2-3 seconds. Otherwise they get up and they go to the refrigerator. They're going to do that anyways. They've always done that. So you've got to hit them in the first couple of seconds. And so, from my perspective, show it, whatever it is that you've got 1 second before they walk away. So show your product and make it be something in those first couple of seconds that is compelling enough for people want to stop before they change the channel or stop before they get up and leave the room. Because you can't count on anyone watching your 30-second commercial when they can take 30 seconds and go do something else, or take 30 seconds and just read their phone. So for anyone advertising on TV or anywhere else for that matter, it doesn't matter the channel that you're advertising through. If you don't get their attention in the first couple of seconds, you're done. Like I said before, you're one click away from losing them. They'll just click right away. And in this case, they'll either get up and walk away, or they'll just get on their phone and just wait for it to be over, because, people don't want to be watching commercials. They want to watch the show that they've been invested in. And so, you can get away with a 15-second spot. If like our product, we could do 15 seconds. I mean, we could do 5 seconds, just show the picture and show the email address or the website, and you're done. And people will go there and buy. So it's, what is the offer? Do you have that offer front and center at the first 3 seconds of the video? Everything after that, it's just like, okay, that's for the rest of the people who are willing to sit there and watch, or it's just going to be background noise for them. So that really is what it comes down to. And that applies to every form of advertising that you're doing across all channels.
No, that's incredibly helpful. So we're going to be transitioning over to the bot segment of the podcast right now. I'm going to walk you through how it looks like on the back end and what we imagine it to be. But on a high level overview, the goal here is based on what I currently understand with Siligram's audience, which is a little bit right, is to offer them something parallel to their hobbies to make them excited to join the contest. So what we're going to be giving away here is we're going to be giving away a bottle of whiskey. And I'm going to say this right out of the gate. I have never marketed whiskey before, so I'm not entirely sure about the advertising rules, but let's just pretend that giving away a whiskey bottle is okay, right?
Okay.
I'm gonna
now,
go,
one question: why wouldn't we give away one of our products?
because that's what we're going to be doing on the back end. I'll show you.
Okay.
Yeah. Let me just share my screen here. My screen and share. Let me know once you can see it.
I see it.
Perfect. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be running something called a social contest. And the entire premise of this contest is based off a print-on-demand store in the past. I believe they raffled away monster trucks. Those monster trucks were $700,000 to a couple $1 million. And to join, it's very easy. Just provide your email. But there are other methods that they could use to gain more points. And the more points that you have, then the higher the likelihood of you winning the prize. And that's when the products come in. Like you can purchase our shirts, you can purchase our tires, etc., etc. So how the user is going to be coming in is we're going to be putting up an Instagram post telling them like, hey, tag a friend, etc., etc., etc.
Mm-hmm.
The moment that they comment, we are going to be sending them this message where we welcome them to Siligrams. And it's extremely important here to make them do something like a double opt-in, because you can tell them in the post like, hey, we'll be DMing you, and some people will be like, why are you DMing, right? So
Mm-hmm.
we want to make
Mm-hmm.
sure that they know what they're getting into. So once they click on
Mm-hmm.
sign me up, actually, let's go into view prices first. So let's say they click on view prices. This is the message that they're going to be getting, where essentially we check to see if the time is after the giveaway time. If it's not, then they would get this message where it says like, hey, here's our
Mm-hmm.
price. But otherwise, we let them know like, hey, it's over. But
Mm-hmm.
going back, once they click on sign me up, again, we check to see if the giveaway contest is over. If they don't
Mm-hmm.
currently follow us on Instagram, we let them know like, hey, you need to follow us, because it's always good for social proof, right? So once they
Mm-hmm.
follow us, we go ahead and check to see if we have their first name. And the problem with Instagram bots is we don't pull first name and last name automatically like Messenger, and
Mm-hmm.
sometimes people use an use another name on Instagram. So
Yeah.
that's why we ask for their first name, and then we ask for their email, and that's really
Mm-hmm.
helpful because it helps to grow your email list. And once that is
Mm-hmm.
done, they go through something called a list management flow. So the problem with ManyChat is that if you have 10,000 people coming in and you want to broadcast to these 10,000 people, that's fine, that's no problem. But what happens when you want to broadcast to a segment of those people, maybe 2,000
Mm-hmm.
people? Like, that's going to be a problem. So what we actually do here is we assign every single user a number. So that
Mm.
actually allows us to broadcast to a smaller segment in case we need it.
Right.
So
Gotcha.
moving on, we sign them up. Then there's of course a bit of logic here. We give them a tag. Um, we give them 25 points for signing up. We log a conversion event. This is basically just to give us the high level overview of how many people have came in, what time they came in. We
Mm-hmm.
pull their Instagram username, we pull their follow account, and we set a live chat link. So live chat link basically gives us direct access to be able to communicate with the customer, so we don't have to dig around in our live chat logs. And everything we're doing here, we're pulling into
Mm-hmm.
a Google Sheet. So we tell them that they've signed up,
Okay.
and the next thing that they're going to be doing is clicking on how do I earn. Of course, we tell them right up, like, you can stop here if you like. We given you 25 points, but if you like to stack the deck in your favor, which I'm going to assume like majority of them are going to want to,
Mm-hmm.
here's what you can do. So here is the 4 different steps. The first is following us on social media. It's the standard. Follow us on Facebook, follow us on YouTube, TikTok, etc. You get 10 points for every social media platform you follow us on. So Whack-A-Mole is
Uh-huh.
actually something slightly different. I'm sure you've been to the arcade before. You've seen those moles popping up and you take
Yeah.
a hammer and hit
Yes,
them.
of course. That's why I was just laughing. It's like, oh, whack-a-mole, the arcade game. That's great.
Exactly. So the interesting thing about Whack-A-Mole is this would be effective if you're leading up to a product launch, because the goal here is to get them micro engaged on a daily basis. And
Yeah.
we actually
Mm-hmm.
do a little bit of mental tweaking, which I will show you here. Um, 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 so you see in our win randomizer, it's set to 60% as a win, 30% as a miss, and
Mm-hmm.
10% as a wrong. So near, we call it a near miss. So for example, if they pick hole 2, the mole is going to be on hole 1 and 3. And the reason why we do this
Yeah.
is because they've studied gamblers in Las Vegas, and they've seen that
Mm-hmm.
these gamblers actually see a near miss as a win. So we're trying to get as many hooks into the
Uh-huh.
customer as possible to condition them like, hey,
Totally.
I'm winning, I'm winning, I'm winning, and then get them to micro
Mm-hmm.
engage on a daily basis. With this micro engagement, they're going to be more likely to purchase the product on launch day.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So that's the whack-a-mole section. There is also the tag us in your stories. I think this is a
Mm-hmm.
fantastic idea. When a customer tags your brand in the stories, they automatically get sent a DM like, hey, thank you for tagging us in your
Mm-hmm.
stories. Of course, in the context of this, we're going to be giving them 250 points. But just ordinary brands could just put a chatbot anytime somebody tags into your stories, hey, we've seen you tag us in your stories, like, do you need any help, or here's 10% off. And that actually fosters the customer relationship more than people would think.
Mm-hmm.
And then we're going to
Mm-hmm.
be going into the really exciting part where we grab our products. And they are
Mm-hmm.
given the choice of 3 different products. Of course, you could um, offer a host of different products, but how we are actually setting up the logic for this in the back end, let me just try to pull it up right now. And as luck would have it, I need to try to find it. There we go. I think it's this one. So what actually happens is we have a make automation in the background, and it's scanning the Shopify orders every 10 minutes. So every 10 minutes, it's
Mm.
going to look back on 10 to 30 Shopify orders, depending on what the volume of orders you're getting on a daily basis. And then it's
Mm-hmm.
going to comb through every single email. And if that email corresponds to the email of the customer who came in through the ManyChat flow, then what you want to
Mm-hmm.
do is you want to change the string custom field to an integer. So string is
Mm-hmm.
basically a text base. The problem with Make is that it's only able to pull the price of the product into a text-based custom field. So we had to set up some external request here, and once that's done, we do some logic to multiply the amount by 5. I believe it should be divided by 5, but this wrong. But then we let them know, like, hey, we've credited the item
Mm-hmm.
into whatever, into your points. And that is basically the entire premise of Bob. What do you think?
Oh my God, it's magnificent. The whole time you were demonstrating that, I was thinking about, all the ways that we've been talking about engaging with people on Instagram. And it has been very challenging for us because there's only so much content that you can put out there that's related to the kind of product that we sell. And if people are not looking to buy a gift for anyone right now, they can what they see in their feed, but not do anything with it. And one thing that I've been struggling with is, how do we keep them engaged in between the times when they are willing to buy the product or they have a need to buy the product? Because you can only talk about the product so many different ways. You can only come up with so much content to keep them engaged and keep them coming back. It's a really heavy lift to create that much content, and it doesn't necessarily, and in most cases, it often doesn't translate into anything concrete like sales and so forth. And I have always been a big fan of gamification that gets people engaged, whether it's spin the wheel for something or anything that has a leaderboard where there are people who are definitely motivated by getting the number of points. It's like, how many points can I accumulate? Like for people who are that have frequent flyer accounts that, they'll shop in a certain store because they get points added to their frequent flyer account because, that's really valuable to them. So seeing all of this type of all of the ways that you keep them coming back and engaging and giving them so many different ways to add points, that's really valuable, and I think extremely beneficial for a company, especially if you need to automate the activity on the account. Where if it's just content generation, you just become a content machine. But to me, this method is much more effective because it is actually engaging them. It is getting them to take action, and getting those micro commitments is the fastest path to getting them to buy. Because otherwise all of the users are passive. It's just like on TikTok, all of these people investing all this time creating content, and what they're waiting for is the moment that one of their videos goes viral. But at the end of the day, how much time have you spent and how many videos have you created that you've been putting out there? It's like all free entertainment for people, but there's nothing compelling about it to make people want to buy right now. But from loyalty programs that, like Starbucks is really amazing at this, where if you have their app and you get points for everything that you buy, and then they're always popping up that reward thing of, do you want to use your reward points? And then you're always buying more, because, oh, I'm getting this free, so then I'm going to get that other thing. And it's just it is a magnificent manipulation. And I use that without any judgment. It is a perfect way of manipulating the buyer into moving forward in the process. It just helps facilitate things, and that it's automated. From my perspective, like, I'm a huge fan of bots, and seeing this whole thing mapped out like this is a really magnificent and efficient and cost-effective way of getting your prospective customer engaged with your brand and your products, and that you will generate sales as a result of this. And, and the hardest thing about bots is building them, because, most companies don't have people in-house to build their bots. And you have to have somebody inside a company who is an advocate or an evangelist or an enthusiast when it comes to using this kind of technology. But for me, from my perspective, this is something that I've been using since the bots became available on social media years ago, where it's like the biggest thing that you could, be a brand and have this message be automatically generated. And that your customers could at least get a response, like that. If they showed up somewhere, you could send them something. And that was in the infancy of the bots. But now as sophisticated as they are, it's like there's nothing you can't do with it. So one of my favorite ones is that when somebody comes to your website, they're presented with a bot that shows them the newest product that's come out and gives them the link where they can just go and buy the product. And we've had tremendous success with that, where the site, they come to the site and the bot just presents them with the product, and they can just click off it or just type a message. And so it's the same thing with that gamification, where I've used like the spin the wheel to get this kind of discount. And, it's the same discount we would have given them anyways, but people always love to feel like they won something. And then it's like, ooh, I'm in a buying mood. It's just like at the casinos, like you really do have to study like the mentality of risk and gambling to really understand how people think about spending money, or how they approach the possibility of winning. And it's the same thing when you get into talking about discounts. Like, people love to say they will spend more money just to save some money on discounts that like they'll buy something because they're afraid that they'll miss out on the sale, and that if they buy this sometime later on, it's going to cost them that much more. So now they have to buy. So, the psychology around discounts and all of this stuff is really compelling, because you can pretty well predict. You could actually create your business just based on what you just demonstrated, Sean, with that sort of thing, using bots to generate sales for you, because it's just using the psychology of what makes people buy. So yeah, this is really, really amazing. And I love the whack the mole, because everybody knows that arcade game, at least in the States. I'm sure it has some form in other countries, but anybody who's ever been to an arcade knows that there's the whack the mole game, and everybody's just like whacking away at them, and they get all their aggression out, and they feel good that they whacked the mole. It's like, okay. It's like, all right, you needed to beat on something. At least, it's a good thing it was that, not somebody else.
Well, I'd just like to take this podcast to a close. The first thing I'm gonna ask is, Arlene, do you have anything at all that you would like to plug, or if there's any place that the audience would like to visit you, or maybe just talk with you, where would they go?
You can go to Siligrams.com. That's Siligrams.com. And the products we make are primarily for gift giving. And so Uh, when you're looking for a gift for someone who has everything, this is the gift they're not likely to have. And it's a kind of gift that will make people feel that you really put a lot of time into thinking about what would be special just for them, because you can put their initials on it, you can put a monogram, you can put, their company logo or some kind of image that's meaningful to them. It could be their university logo or their favorite team, or the name of their pet, or even an image of their pet, and so forth. So it's a really nice gift to give, and it doesn't have to be for people who are drinking alcoholic beverages. It's just wherever there's a need for an ice cube, and larger ones, because the large ice cubes keep your drink colder longer than how your ice cubes melt and then it's just your drink is all watery and it loses its flavor. These are big, and so they take up a lot of space and they keep your drink cold. Plus, it's like really cool looking inside your glass, and there's this cool picture on the ice cube. It's right there. So it's just a really impressive thing, and a lot of people think so. So yeah, you can just check it out at siligrams.com.
Yeah, we'll be dropping the link to the site in the YouTube description below. But once
Oh,
again,
beautiful.
thank you so much for your time, Arlene.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you so much, Sean.